Melanated Movement's virtual roundtable, the Date Smart Collective. My name is Brittany House, and today I'll be your moderator. Today we have three lovely panelists with us today. We have Dr. Oni Blackstock. She is a primary care and HIV physician who is also founder and executive director of Health Justice. Health Justice is a consulting firm that empowers health organizations to prioritize health equity. We have Ashley Cobb, who is a sexual health educator and PrEP advocate located in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is author of her new book, Pleasure Please. Lastly, we have Katt, who is a public health advocate who chairs Sisters Organizing to Survive, or SOS, in the Miami-Dade County, Florida area, specializing in HIV prevention, sexual health education, and community empowerment for Black women. Thank you for joining us today, ladies. I'm so excited to have you and to have such a productive conversation today around healthy dating habits for Black women. So let's jump right into it. So when you think back to what you were taught or what you weren't taught about dating and relationships growing up, what's one word that comes to mind and why?
Okay, are we going in order? I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry.
All panelists.
Hopefully they can splice this out.
I can jump in.
But I think it's helpful for you. Yeah, if you can say so-and-so, just sure. I would just say unmodeled, if that's a word. Like I didn't have a model or examples for healthy dating in action. And the main message was that no one was good enough for me, but I wasn't taught what healthy partnership looked like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I wasn't really taught to date, and I think a lot of Black girls aren't taught to date. I had parents who were married, but they, dating was a thing you do once you become an adult. In high school, you're focused on grades and going to college. So it wasn't really encouraged to date in high school. So I had to figure it out on my own as an adult, and that has pros and cons. You're mute, Miss Katt.
Yes.
High school for me was a long time ago, but the one thing that sticks out when I think about dating, my grandmother would always say, get to know people and date so you know what you don't want. Don't look at anybody's relationship and think it's the best. You have to know what you don't want. And that has guided me and helped me in so many ways.
I love that. And so based off of what you all kind of said, how has that influenced what your beliefs around what healthy relationships look like for you today? So I know we mentioned like mimicking our parents, modeling, and also hearing, the feedback that no one is good for us. So how did that influence you all's healthy relationships, what that looks like today?
For me, being aware of myself, learning what are deal breakers for me, learning what I will tolerate, what I won't tolerate. In some instances, people say, oh, that's not a big deal for me. It's almost like tomato. What's important to you or how a thing affects you guides me in dating, what my boundaries are, what feels good to me, what doesn't feel good to me. Those are some of the things that I use to guide which way I go in dating.
And I think for me, my parents' relationship taught me what I don't want more so than what I want. Like it works for them. They've been married since, right out of high school. But it's just like, this, I don't want this. And so as an adult, it's done. When I see people, particularly men, and I'm like, oh, this is when it is mimics, I guess, relationship my parents have, I run the other direction because like, I don't want this. So I don't necessarily know if it was a good model or not, but it did teach me what I did not want.
Oh, I totally co-signed what Ashley said. So my parents were unhappily married, actually. So maybe that's different. But, my mother met my dad when she was 18 and they married when she was 21, and she married to get out of my grandmother's home. So she left from like one place where she didn't have a lot of autonomy, and then she went into another situation, marriage. And that was a dynamic back then. She got married in the late 60s, early 70s. So, for me, what I saw is that like dependability, for instance, like someone who's reliable, seemed important and like a healthy part of partnership. And when I ended up getting married, I'm no longer married, but when I got married, I thought dependability represented care. And I realized that people can show different patterns, can show dependability, can show reliability. But if there's not a care that's underlying it, then it's sort of empty. And I would just say, now that I've been with my current partner for the last 5, almost 6 years, it took into this time to almost 50 years old to realize that it's about my nervous system feeling good. And I'm so sorry, there's some noise in the background, so I'm gonna turn it over.
Thank you for that. Self-awareness is something that you all have kind of mentioned in you all's journeys. And so I'll direct this question. Or Dr. Blackstock, did you want to finish your answer?
Oh, what was I saying?
You're in a new relationship, you're married.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I mean, I remember I heard Meg Thee Stallion say this, like, well, about someone she dated before, but she was like, the person made her nervous system feel good. And so I think embodiment, like just feeling, understanding how we're feeling, what's coming up in our bodies when we're with whoever is so important. And I think I mistook a lot of feelings like anxiety for like attraction, all these different things. And over time, you get to realize what these different feelings mean and what they're telling you about how this person is, affecting you. So I would just say that.
Okay, thank you for that. No, and so going into kind of something that all of you all touched on, and I have specific questions for each of you. Katt, you mentioned self-awareness is something that, is important to you in your dating life. How has knowing yourself better changed your approach to dating?
So I'll say this first. Something happens with me in relationships at year 5. Like, I can have the best partner, I can have someone who's caring, attentive, that checks off all the boxes. But when I think about what I want long term, if I don't see those things, it starts to make me withdraw from that person. And sometimes it's unfair, but when you see little signs all along and then you kind of, that's small, but the big things are happening, or the big things that I want are happening, you cannot stop thinking about those little things. And the more in tune you are with yourself, the more you love yourself. I'm almost 6. Well, I shouldn't have said that, but okay. April 6th is my birthday. Thank you. April 6th is my birthday. And let me tell you, I'm learning more and more about myself. I'm more in tune with myself. I'm learning what I like, what I don't like. Oh, I thought I liked this, but I realized I really don't like this. So the more in tune you are with yourself, the more honest you are when you look in that mirror and you see you and you accept the things that are, I always say, the pieces of me. I always tell people, these are the pieces of me. This is who I am. This is who God made me. When you accept those things and when you deal with those things, that keeps you more in tune with who you are, which allows you to definitely know what you want in dating and what you don't want. And I keep going back to that because that was instilled in me as a little girl. And so it's there. And the more I learn about me, there are some things I don't like about me. But I deal with those things. I don't push them to the back and say, oh, no, that's not it. All of that matters in dating because you have to remember you're two individuals trying to meet at some level to be compatible and to grow together. So, yes, that's it for me.
Thank you for that. Dr. Oni, you had talked about like your nervous system and different things like that. And so often we hear women talk about red flags, but let's kind of flip it. So what are some green flags that women should be looking for when they're dating someone? Like, what are some green flags that you encountered in dating and how did that differ from the nervousness that you felt? You're still muted.
Thank you. Yes. So I think a few are for me, someone who's affirming. So I remember like when I was married, I would be like, oh my God, like this is happening and I'm stressed out, blah, blah. And my ex-husband would be like, I don't understand what the big deal is. You know what I mean? And now with my partner, who's a woman, I tell her stuff and she's like, okay, let's just, everything's going to be okay. She hears me, she sees me, she has consideration for me. So that's another thing, like someone who is thinking of you and what impact they will have on you, whether it's their words or their behaviors or actions, I think is really important. Someone who's accountable. I know this sound like really, it's like when you get older, they sound, but someone who takes responsibility for harm that they may have caused you, right? Mm-hmm. So saying, being able to say, I'm so sorry, what can I do to repair this? And see change behavior as a result. So I think those are a few green flags that I think about. And then also just someone who shows appreciation for who you are. It's really important.
Thank you for that. I love that. Ashley, you had mentioned like unlearning the behavior that we see in our parents and different things like that, but even taking it a step forward or beyond that, just learning or unlearning the things we learned from TV or social media or peers. So what is one dating myth that you believed, but you have since unlearned?
Yeah, getting your dating advice from social media is a surefire way to stay single. Don't do that because like you hear conversations like the whole 50-50 conversation, or you hear if someone likes you, they're going to take you, spend hundreds of dollars with you on the first date, and it's not a universal rule. So like dating is more individualized and it's based on the things that you like, right? So there are some things that are general truths, but for as a whole, you shouldn't be getting your dating advice from the internet without looking at the whole person. So like I know when I was younger, I probably thought, let's say like if a guy likes me, maybe they're gonna be like calling me all the time, or my guy, I didn't talk to him for 24 hours. He doesn't like me. That is not how life works. People have lives. Now if you don't hear from him for a week, okay, but just one day does not mean someone does not like you. And so yeah.
Thank you for that. And so kind of moving the conversation towards like grooming, safety, and red flag recognition. Something that you mentioned, Ashley, is like the constant calling and different things like that. And sometimes we misunderstand some of those behaviors as attention and like, oh, he loves me, when it's really, or that person loves me, but it's really could be toxic behavior. So I know grooming isn't something that is usually discussed in adult dating, but it does happen. So and this question is for Katt. What are some early behaviors women should watch out for that might indicate grooming? You're still muted. Mm-hmm. Ms. Katt, you're still muted. There we go. Okay. Yep, you're still muted again. Nope, can't hear you.
What in the heck? Okay,
Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. One of the things that's a classic for me. You meet someone, you're hanging out with them, and they say, I'm really not looking for a relationship, but we'll just see each other and see how it goes. But I called you and you didn't respond. I was looking for you yesterday and I didn't see you. I texted you and sent you a kissy face and you didn't send me one back. Listen, those are signs that it's going to be trouble later. If I'm just meeting you and you don't know me and I don't know you, there should be no expectation. And that's what we as women do a lot of times. We go in with expectations. And when you go in and your conversation reflects expectation, that person quickly picks up on that and they begin to set expectations. So a red flag for me is how you speak to me. What are your expectations of me? And then I wasn't really expecting you to call me. I was just asking. No, that's an expectation. And we have to pay attention to those things. We can't just say, oh, no, that doesn't mean anything. I would say that is a number one when you're just meeting someone, and someone who's telling you, in the old days, they said, I believe in love at first sight. Baby, listen, brother, no. Sister, no. You don't know me. So you have to get to know a person, but those little subtle things like that are things that we have to pay attention to, because later on they create bigger issues.
I love that. Thank you. And so this question is for you, Ashley. So when someone shows you who they are, we tend to believe them, or we should believe them. What can we do to truly see the person that we're dating rather than imagining who we hope they will become?
Yeah, so my mama always used to tell me, we have to accept things for how they are instead of how we wish they would be, right? And so a lot of times when it comes to dating, sometimes we as women, we have these rose-colored glasses on, and this is going to sound very probably interesting coming from me, but like when you have sex with someone, you really, like, it clouds your judgment. And I feel like once people have sex, sometimes the learning of the people stop. Right, learning them as a person kind of stops, and now just focus on sex. So I don't think there's like a rule. You should get to know somebody X amount of days before you have sex with them. I don't believe in that. But I do think you should get to know people without the extra emotions, all the extra things that's happening. So you can just see them for what they are, and not for what you want it to be, or not for what your hormones is telling you it is. So let's get to know them a little bit, particularly before you put sex involved. That way you can actually still get to know the person. So that's what I would say.
If I may, really quick,
Go for it.
I just want to say, when we get in relationships, we feel like that's something we have to do, have sex with this person, or I wonder what sex is going to be like, because if you're attracted to a person in 30 seconds, if it's physical, if you can't have a conversation with a person, the next thing comes to your mind is sex, because he's fine. That's why I started talking to him, because he looked real good. And I'm wondering, but when we have sex with people early, what begins to happen is we start to compare them to the last person that we had sex with. We expect them to know what we like, us to know what they like, and then we automatically start saying, now the last time I had sex with someone, or the last person I had sex with, this happened. I'm gonna see if he's gonna do this time. So the comparison is not just physical, it becomes emotional. You start rethinking things that have happened, and if it's gonna happen again. That's something that always stands out to me also.
Dr. Blackstock?
Yeah, I wanted to also add, there may be people who are interested in just meeting someone and having sex, and that's totally fine. I just think it's important to just be clear on what you are looking for. So if that's something that you just want to be sexually active with someone, you don't want a relationship, that's great. And being clear with that with yourself and whoever the person is. But if you're wanting, to date someone, to really get to know them, to eventually, have a relationship, just be clear about that too. But just to say there's again, there's nothing wrong with people having, sex on the first date if that's what they want. And obviously knowing that will, if you do want a relationship, that will probably change the trajectory of things, because that's just kind of how things go. But I would also say, like, one thing that I don't know, tried to learn, but this idea of like playful detachment. So I just feel like, I don't know, just men, their behavior is actually it's very predictable. And so I think someone was saying before, like, if you show that you're like super interested, whatever, like, they kind of actually sometimes get bored and they're not really as interested. So I think what's really important is to, just enjoy, like, even if you are interested in getting a relationship, really just enjoy, like, be in the moment, be present, enjoy getting to know the person. Again, not rushing to have sex if that's not something that, if you're really wanting this to be something, of substance, really about not just physical, but also emotional and all of that. So I just wanted to also say, like, I notice a lot of, and I was like this too, we get really stuck on people very quickly. But again, we don't know that person. And the same thing Katt was saying, well, they don't know me. Like, you don't know that person. So, just ease into it and enjoy and be in the moment without like some expectation.
Thank you for that. And so that leads me to a question for all panelists. And then I have a specific question for you, Dr. Oni, but this leads me to my question for all panelists. What does clear communication sound like? And can you give an example of how to directly express your needs in a relationship or a situationship?
I'll go first. Clear communication is just kind of stating what it is that you want. I think sometimes we as women and girls, we know what we want, but we're afraid to say it because we are afraid of rejection and afraid that, oh, maybe they might not like me. So we kind of like tap around it. So like, for example, there's some people now, I have no issue with situationships, right? If that's what you want to do, fine. I think situationships have benefits, but there's sometimes people know they want a relationship and they want the commitment, right? But the person they're with or they're trying to be with is like, no, I want to go with the flow. And so sometimes we say, okay, I'm okay going the flow when you're really not. You're really not. So stay saying what you want up front, whatever that is. I want a relationship. I'm looking to get married. Whatever that is, stay it up front, and that way also you eliminate people who are not aligned with you. And so just say it up front and don't really, be afraid to say what it is you want.
So I'm going to piggyback off of what Ashley just stated and say that sometimes what we think in our mind and what we dream about being our relationship, we can't see it. And because we can't see it, we don't believe we can have it. So we settle. And once you settle, other things come into play. And when you start allowing so many things to come into play, it totally takes you away from what your vision is and what it is that you feel you want, because you become comfortable with other things so that you can have what you think is close to the relationship or what you're settling for. So I think being clear again, knowing what you want. Dr. Blackstock spoke about not having sex right away. The pressure is deep out here in these streets. You can say, okay, I'm going to date him for 30 days. I'm going to get to know him. I just want to be platonic. I just want to see. The pressure is deep out here. When you see it on social media, TV, when you walk out your door, at the gas station, everywhere you go, you're seeing something sexual. And so it resonates in your mind and you're like, okay, if I don't do this with him, like, is he going to remain interested? That's why I say, anybody that's dating me, you get me. You can say, her honey don't sweeten my tea. Or I like this honey. It's real sweet. But I'm going to keep it 100. That saves me. That protects me. And it keeps me being true to who I am in dating.
No worries. We're just going to give Dr. Blackstock a minute. No worries. So while
it passed. Sorry, this is New York City. It's just so loud. No, I was going to say that, and now I've completely forgotten. Just speaking from the I, and I think this is what Ashley was saying, and Katt as well. Just being like, I need X, Y, Z. For this to work for me, I need this, just speaking from the I, because it's just about what you are wanting. And I was going to say that, if someone is pressuring you to have sex and someone is not listening to what your needs are, moving at the speed of trust versus, bringing urgency to the situation, then that is not the person for you. That person is not respecting you. They're not respecting their boundaries. And I think, that's part of, some of the red flags just earlier, the discussion in terms of there are going to be people who try to push your boundaries or violate your boundaries. And that is data. That means that person is not someone who respects you, and they're actually an unsafe person because they're starting with these small acts, but it can get, it'll get even worse. So that's just a red flag for young folks to know about. One that I was like, someone's showing interest, they're showing interest. That means they like you, but no, are they actually listening to you? And again, how are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling calm with this person, at peace? Or are you feeling, stressed out? You have to, go with whatever they're saying to you.
Thank you for that. And then also my question for you, Dr. Oni, is what practical steps can women take both physically and emotionally to stay safe, especially when starting to date someone new?
So I think a few different things, and then I would love, and I'm sure Ashley's closer to this and Katt as well. But I think, you know, just in terms of like physical safety, like I think it's actually really important for folks to meet in public places when you're first getting to know someone and not having like someone come over your place. And also, if this is someone new, you know, just kind of having a check-in plan, like letting, you know, your girlfriend know or whoever that I'm going to be going out on a date with this person that I met XYZ place. You know, if you don't hear from me by XYZ time, like, you know, just come and follow up with me. So, you know, making sure your phone is charged. Again, just staying where eyes can be on you. And I think emotionally, how can folks stay safe? I think part of it also is just that, you know, again, those red flags, like looking out for those flags where folks are, again, sort of, there's a high intensity to what people are doing. If they're like love bombing you, I think this came up before, trying to isolate you from like your friends very quickly, things like that, then those are folks that you are not safe with.
I like to add something right quick. So I'll add everything Dr. Oni said, yes. And then something that I do, particularly like when I meet people on dating apps, I do a background check. You can go online, do a background check. Some of them are free. Some of them are like cheap, like $19. So all you need is their name and their birthday. And I usually tell people ahead of time that I need your name and your birthday. Come do a background check. Right. And so if they are like apprehensive and like, I don't know, then we're not going out because there's something there that you don't want me to see. But usually in my case, usually they're like, okay, here's my information. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't have anything to hide. So get a background check and it tells you if like they've been locked up or have a sexual assault or violence history. You can see all of that. They've been to jail. You can kind of see all of that too. So do that first.
I love that. Katt,
that is so excellent. I'm sorry, that's so great. I didn't even think about that. And then the fact that if they don't give you their date of birth, then that is, you know, a red flag, right?
Love that.
And so really quick, we do what we call GBC. That's girl background check. So he's somebody's cousin. He's somebody's uncle. He works somewhere. And little things can help you find out bigger things. And that's kind of what we do in our girlfriendships.
I have the same in my friendships. I call it check the man facts, like CarMax. So check the man facts. So definitely love that. Love that. So moving into our conversation or circling back to our conversation around situationships, expectations, and communication. I know situationships are prominent right now. And Ashley, you had mentioned, you know, just when being in a situationship, is there such thing as a healthy situationship? And if so, what does that require to actually work?
Yeah, you can have healthy situationships. A healthy situationship is something that is giving you whatever you want, whatever you need. Like it's not, you know, it's not violent. No one is abusive. It's consensual, and whatever the end goal is that's what's occurring. Like whatever you want this to be, that's happening. If you're in a situationship in hopes that this will turn into something else, then that's not a healthy situationship. And then you're also getting your hopes up something that may not happen. So situationship should definitely be something that you should only enter if you want to do this, and you make sure that you are benefiting from the situation, because situations should both people be benefiting, not just one person. We both should be benefiting from the situationship. And so if you're not benefiting from it, then I wouldn't call that a healthy one.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And so I know a lot of what we're talking about is clear communication, boundaries, and just discussing truly like our vulnerabilities and feelings around relationships and different things like that. So, Katt, you had mentioned earlier, many women kind of say things that they aren't okay with just to keep the peace or just to kind of go along. Why does that happen? And what are some of the long-term consequences you've seen?
Because we got to love ourselves first. When you love yourself first, you don't settle. You don't accept those things. Loneliness is real. Like I've been in situations where I say I'm present, but I don't feel presence. So it's me dealing with something. When you live life on life terms and you're familiar with yourself and you're loving yourself, you won't settle. But if you're not, I can tell myself all day I'm confident, I feel loved, I feel good about me. But if I don't inside, it'll always come out. It'll always come out at a certain time or a certain place. Traumatic things that have happened that we didn't identify as trauma before Now, when it happens, we say, oh my God, like I experienced that before and that was traumatic for me. So those kind of things, when you're not aware with yourself, you will settle. When you don't know what you really want, or if you're just fairy telling what you want versus what you want, those things will happen. You will settle. You will want the companionship. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter who you think you are in your mind. It doesn't matter who you see yourself as. My community sees me as a leader. There are times I don't feel like I'm a leader, but that's how those people see me. So how you see yourself matters, and how you see yourself determines what you put up with and what you don't. And as it relates to dating, if you're used to A, C, D, E, and you get A, B, C, D, you're not going to know how to handle it right away because you're used to something else. So it all goes back to how you see you, how you feel about you, what's your deal breaker, what you're willing to take and not willing to take.
Thank you for that. And so this leads me to a question for both you, Ashley, and you, Katt. So when stating expectations like exclusivity, communications, or future goals, how can women share these without worrying about scaring someone off? Or, what does that look like? Like, how can you clearly communicate these while staying true to yourself?
You can't really worry about scaring somebody off, honestly, because, there's always going to be some people who are not going to, be your jam or not going to like what you want, or that's fine. Rejection is part of life. It's just how it is. But just because you can't let the fear of rejection though stop you from stating what it is that you want and what you need. If someone is not with it, then that's just mean they're not for you. And you have to think about it like that. They're not for me. What I have learned in my 4 decades of living is that men come and go, and also a new one will come around, right? And so it's, when God made you, he just didn't make one man, right? There's millions of other men out there, so you just have to kind of go with that perspective, or whoever, women, whatever. There's not just one. It's what's the Gucci Man song, like
miss one, next 15 one coming.
One coming. Mm-hmm. And that is really that's really true. So
I think when you show up being who you truly are, and you start out honestly and saying, hey, this is me, this is what I stand for, this is what I want, you don't worry about them running off. And if someone runs, you probably need to let them track it. Be a track star, because you can't change who you are. I said the other day, I am who I am. Like, even if you say, I don't like that one thing about you. Okay, what's the median for that one thing? Because the possibility of me changing at my age is slim to none. So you're going to get me. I'm going to show up. I'm going to give you the best version of myself. And the best version of myself may not always be me smiling, happy, everything good. So if I come to you in the beginning and say, hey, I'm presenting myself and not faking and being something else, and then 2 months down the line, you say, oh, I never saw that before. Well, where does that come from? I think that keeps the person involved. But if they run, you allow them to run. Don't you stop them. Let them go.
And like what Ms. Katt said, sometimes even your best person, your showing back your best self, doesn't always align with somebody else, and that's fine. You have to keep that in mind too. You can present your best self and be the best person that you are, but it might not be what the other person wants or need, and that is totally okay.
And the bottom line to that is, to thyself be true. Be true to yourself, and then everything that's supposed to come in the relationship will come. Because if you're being true to yourself, they're getting authentically who you are.
Go for it, Dr. Blackstock.
Can I just add, because I was also thinking about, I feel like this time in life, where there are people on the internet giving advice, things like that. There's so much there. I know we can't learn everything from the internet, but there is a lot of actually good advice. And I feel like when I was coming up, a young woman, I wasn't hearing the conversations like this. Mm-hmm. And so just acknowledging that for young people who are watching this, it may kind of sound, some of this may sound familiar. Some of it may sound like unreasonable. But I will say that I think because I'm close to 50. I think Ashley, you mentioned 40. I think Katt, you mentioned something about 60. I didn't hear. But like we've had experiences and we've learned from those experiences. And I always think, of course, you don't want to just like listen to anyone on the internet, but often there are aunties sharing advice with you so that you don't have to go through pain unnecessarily. So just to say, this is a really wonderful space, and that there, folks like, Ashley, who have large platforms, who are really, sharing this information with a lot of young women who may not be hearing this in their own spaces.
No, thank you for that.
Really quickly, during my time, I'll say, these type of conversations weren't happening. It was don't do that, and that's it. You should not be doing this, and that's it. Now you have people sharing because of their lived experience, because of things that have happened. And our world that we live in is constantly changing. So this is helpful to someone somewhere. I agree with you, Dr. Blackstock.
No, thank you for that. And so that opens up my next question to you, Dr. Oni. So as we talk about sexual health as a part of dating, how do we normalize sexual health conversations when dating? Because I know it could be difficult to express those needs or to express where you are. So how can we normalize those conversations?
Yes, and again, this can be really hard, and I think especially for young folk. But I think just treating sex and sexual health as just part of that conversation of getting to know the other person, just being like really clear. So like saying, I'm enjoying getting to know you. I would like to talk to you about sex and sexual health before we take the next step. Also just being really matter of fact, and also setting the tone, but like, oh, I got my HIV test done 3 months ago. What about you? Like, or when was the last time you got your STI testing? So not like accusatory, but just being like, this is the normal thing you do when you are getting to know someone, and have these conversations, and just be like, talking about these things help me feel safe, help me feel connected to the person that I'm with. And, just being like, for me, I don't do guesswork. I need to know who I'm with. And just, again, speaking in the I to be like, well, this is what I need out of this, I think can be really important. But I'm sure Ms. Ashley and Ms. Katt also have some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, go for it. Katt or Ashley, do you have feedback?
I agree with everything she said, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that.
Thank you for that. And so how can you tell if someone is actually committed towards moving towards building a relationship rather than moving quickly for the wrong reasons, such as having sex? And then what is the difference, in your opinion? And this question is for everyone, but Dr. Blackstock, you can lead as well. What is the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationship momentum? Like, how do you know, like, okay, we're getting to a point where we're ready to engage in sexual activity, or we're not, or this person is kind of bringing it up often? Like, how do we kind of can tell, like, you're just in this just to have, a physical relationship opposed to a more comprehensive romantic one? What does that look like?
I'll go first.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, if people, you can kind of tell if someone is just there for sex, because if their whole conversation is about sex, then that's what they're there for. If you tell someone you want to wait, or you're not there yet, and they are like, trying to pressure you, then they're just there for sex. They're not there to get to know you. What was the other question? It was about sex. What was the other part of the question?
Healthy momentum. Like, how do you know if someone has unhealthy or healthy versus unhealthy momentum?
I think it goes. I still think it goes back to people pressuring you and not honoring whatever you want to do. If I say for whatever reason, because no is you don't have to explain it. For whatever reason, I don't want to do this right now. I would like to wait. I would like to do whatever, and they are trying to pressure you into doing the opposite. Then that person is not. That's not healthy, right? And so I think just honoring that. If a person cannot honor your wishes, then you probably need to let them go.
Thank you for that. Katt, did you have anything to add?
I think they both kind of said everything that I would say. So
okay. Thank you for that. And so now moving into
just say this really quickly, and this is said before, but just to like put another beat it again, is that It's a lot of times we think that when someone's showing a lot of interest in us, like texting us constantly, promising forever very early on, that these are all good signs. And so young people need to know that these are actually can be real warning signs in most cases. So again, like when people are, again, the pressuring, when things are escalating very quickly, those are all signs that this may not be a safe relationship for you.
Gotcha. And so just to kind of reiterate, so we talked about love bombing, isolation, pressuring, moving forward as far as too fast, and just focusing on sexual relationships as a red flag. So just want to highlight those again, because I know, go for it.
One thing, if I may say, if you know the signs of an unhealthy relationship, that would be helpful also, because sometimes what we think is unhealthy is not unhealthy to someone else, but there are basic things that you know about self that will help you see unhealthy things.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, anyone who makes you second guess yourself or feel off balance or like not trust yourself, like this stuff happens a lot. I think back over my life and how often this happened, and I did not realize that this was problematic behavior. So anyone who is making you doubt yourself or second guess yourself, again, probably unsafe.
Thank you for that. And so again, moving towards sexual health, PrEP, and informed decision making. For women who are unfamiliar with PrEP or unsure how to use it, can you explain what PrEP is and who may benefit? And this question is for yourself, Ashley, as you are a PrEP advocate, and then for Dr. Oni.
Okay, well, in simple terms, PrEP is the birth control of HIV. So we get on birth control as women because we don't want to have babies, right? Don't have a baby. If you're already pregnant, the birth control will not work. It's too late, right? So same thing with PrEP. PrEP is for people who are HIV negative and want to remain HIV negative. So if you're someone who is already living with HIV, PrEP is not the medication for you. So PrEP is when taken as prescribed, is about 99% effective. So there's various PrEP medications. So we have a daily oral pill, like a birth control pill, you take every day around the same time. You have a injection, kind of like a depot shot, that you take every other month. And then you have another shot, like a depot shot, that you take every 6 months. And they're also in the works of doing a once a week pill as well. So those are the different types of PrEP that are currently out and on the way to being out.
That was so excellent, Ashley. I don't really have much to add to that. I would just say that it's also something that can give people peace of mind. So whether you are starting to date someone or you've been dating someone for a while, if you feel like you need like an extra layer of protection, even if it's just for you, like not for the relationship, but for you, PrEP could be an option. So just to say, even folks who may not, be with a partner who is known to be living with HIV or on meds, like even if the whole thing is about, it's user controlled, so you get to do with it and take it regardless of whether your partner wants you to do it, whether they know, whatever it is.
And then, so Dr. Blackstock, what are some real barriers for Black women accessing PrEP? And then how do you find a provider that you feel comfortable with as far as discussing these options?
Okay, sure. And then I would love to hear from Ashley, because I always feel like lived experience is like the most important. So again, I'm going over this based on like my conversations with my patients, my own research, things like that. But I always think of it like individual level, provider level, and structural level. And what I'll do is I'll just talk about the provider level. So for instance, we know that healthcare providers have assumptions about Black women, about whether Black women can take a medication daily or not. So one of my colleagues, a Black woman, Dr. Shanika Hull, did a study where she found that it was like hypothetical cases. And she found that healthcare providers with a higher racism score were less likely to prescribe in these hypothetical situations PrEP to Black women. And it was basically those who had higher racism scores were less likely. And the belief was that they thought that Black women would not be able to take it daily. So they just were like, we're not gonna even offer this. So healthcare providers can be real gatekeepers. It could be a positive or a negative. Like I'm like a positive gatekeeper because I'm gonna talk to all my patients about PrEP, but they're gonna also be providers who are like, making the decision that this is not something I'm gonna talk to my patient about, or I don't think this person is at risk because they're married or they're in a long-term relationship. So just to say healthcare provider. And the healthcare providers also like don't like talking about sex, and many of them and sexual history with patients. So sometimes this conversation doesn't even come up. But I'll pass it over to Ashley to talk about what she's seen.
And the same. I've seen. I've had a lot of people who contacted me because I talk about PrEP on social media. So I've had a lot of women who talk to me about, I went to a doctor and they was like, why are you trying to get on that, right? So there is a lot of biases with healthcare professionals. Sometimes they too feel like you have to be a certain type of person to get on PrEP, and that is not true. So I often tell women, you can fire your doctor just like you can fire anybody else. So I'll share my story. Like, I was on the daily pills at first, and then I wanted to get on the injectable, and the clinic that I was going to was like, no, basically. They didn't want to prescribe that. So I left that clinic and found someone who would give me what I wanted. And so that's what you just have to do. You can fire doctors and go find someone else who will, who will listen to what you're saying.
Thank you for that. And then Katt, just from your perspective, I know you mentioned you're 60 years old. What does that look like for women in your age demographic? But also, how can you discuss PrEP with a partner or a doctor comfortably from your age perspective?
So my doctor, my gynecologist, when I asked her, did she have any information about PrEP? I'm up in stirrups. She kind of came around and, what's that? So I said, no, ma'am, you will not be doing anything to me if you don't know about PrEP. And that's important. And it made me realize women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are still having sex, still warm, still wanting to do things. So we need to be able to express, like, I want to try this thing, because most women who are older are having sex with younger men who probably are only having sex with that person and has someone else for a partner, or who are interested in someone more their age level. People do things for whatever reasons. But when I talk to women about PrEP who are my age, they say, what is that? Like, I prep my lunch for work. I prep my clothes, and you say, no, this is what it is. But when did they come up with that? This is something new. It's because the providers are not sharing information. I said to a provider, it's not a waste of your time to educate a woman in my age group about PrEP, because I may be sexually active with someone I just met for 6 months, and for 6 months I may not be. So when I need it, but I need to have access to it. And there have been providers who have straight up said, no, it's not good for you. For what reasons? Well, I can't tell you for what reasons. I mean, it's the same medication. It's Truvada for PrEP, but no, you don't need that. No, I know what I need. I need you to be able to assist me when I tell you I need it. And the conversation just happens like we're conversating now. At least that's how I hold the conversation. Let me empower you, because with more comes more. And if you have more information about it, you're empowered. But I promise you, there are not a lot of Black women who actually know what PrEP is today. They don't know. So we have to find a way to educate them more, and that's what I do. I every conversation is based around the sexual health and PrEP.
And let me add this right quick, in reference to like talking about your partner. So you don't have to tell your partner anything. There's not something that you have to tell. I think a lot of women have that. I get that question a lot. Well, what how can I tell my partner what are they gonna think about me if I'm on PrEP? Right? You don't have to tell your partner anything. It's not their business, really. And now with the injectables, they won't know because there's no pills that they will see. You can go get your PrEP because you want to get your PrEP, and they can be none the wiser. They don't have to know you're on PrEP. You don't have to share that information if you don't want to.
Yeah, and I was going to just add, this whole thing, like, age is not a condom. So like a lot of healthcare providers not having conversations with older women, like they'll ask maybe what your sexual history is, like maybe the first time, but they're not like revisiting it. And this is the reason why, like, when we even look at unintended pregnancies, like the highest rate of unintended pregnancies, I believe, are among older women, because no one's talking to them about family planning. And then similarly, we see when we look at diagnoses among women for HIV, it tends to happen at an older age than for men. Men are usually diagnosed, usually in their 20s, maybe early 30s. And for Black women, it's older. And it's also because folks are not talking to us about it. Folks aren't doing HIV testing. Folks aren't talking about PrEP. So just wanted to piggyback off of what my co-panelist said.
No, thank you for that. And that leads me into our final few questions. But one question I wanted to ask, and this one is directed towards Katt, but open to all panelists as well. How does community support Black women in healthier dating lives? Because I know we talked about like doctors not necessarily having the information or not necessarily being age conscious. So what does community support in our health how does community support our dating lives?
I don't necessarily know that community supports, because when you're older, community looks at it like, oh, you should be settled or you should already be with someone. But when you're auntie and you swinging, it's like, oh, auntie out here. Well, I know this place. I know that there are a lot of social things being set up for middle age and older women now. They're distinguishing outings, what type of things. But what gets me with that is that because I'm 60 don't mean that I don't like the same thing a 40-year-old like. I might like the same kind of fun. So I can't say that community supports. I do know that there are some organizations like and SOS is one where we empower the entire woman. So places they can go, things they can do, events or social or educational that may be good for them. We encourage those things, but most communities look at us like she should already be settled. Like, what could we do to help her? But I think the empowerment and empowering and educating that woman as a community and sharing the information is how community helps.
Gotcha. And then second part to that question, just because something you mentioned as far as like untangling that and kind of removing that stigma and changing the gaze of how we view older women. How do you untangle that as far as unresolved experiences, stigma, trauma, family patterns, so it doesn't drive your current choices?
I think it goes back to knowing you and understanding what feels good for you. Dr. Oni talked about your nervous system, like what doesn't make you feel some type of way that's not positive. How you do, well, we call it how you move, stigma. Oh, my auntie used to. Today, that is not relevant, what your auntie used to do. My grandmother used to tell me, you think your grandfather the best. He got a whole family down the street. I was devastated to find out that he did, but it's no different than today. A man will make you feel like you are the one and only and have him by 7 of them. Not 7 of them, 7 of them, meaning it's some extra onto the 7. So you have to govern yourself in a way that you know. And no matter what we talk about here today or how we talk about it, is self-awareness, is self-consciousness, is how you see you. Because I'm a community engager. Everybody knows me in my hood and where I serve. But guess what? I may not be as secure as people think I am. So I may fall prey to something that I talk about every day. Not everybody walks it. Some people just talk it, so the stigma around, oh, you're an older woman, you shouldn't be dating. How do you break that? Empower them and let them date, rather than not empower them and have them sneak and do stuff. I have umpteen people who tell me about their situationships, and I say, oh, okay, then okay. And on the inside, I'm saying, girl, no, I know you not. But people are, we can't judge people. So I think what happened back then kind of sort of still happens now, just in a different way.
Thank you for that. Dr. Blackstock and Ashley, do you have any feedback on that? No? Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And so going into one of our final questions, what single piece of advice would you give Black women starting to date or starting over?
This is my advice for particularly the young ones, is to get people who are like a generation or 2 generations ahead of you and ask them for advice. So it's cool. It's nice and cool to ask your friends, but a lot of times your friends are exactly where you are. How they think is how you think. What they're going through is what you're going through, right? So their advice is kind of like the blind leading the blind, kind of. But with age comes wisdom, and people have seen more summers, so they have a little more experience. So asking older women, having an older woman that you can ask. It doesn't have to be like a parent or something, but somebody that you trust, and just ask them for advice. Is what has helped me over the years.
Dr. Blackstock?
Oh, sure. So I think, my theme is like just trusting your intuition and your gut, because I think our society often conditions us, especially women, to not trust ourselves, and especially young women. So just knowing that your body often picks up on what your mind has not had a chance to fully name, and to pay attention to that. So are you feeling calm and grounded and at ease, or are you feeling uncomfortable and anxious? So just check it, because we have all of the answers. The answers are within us. And if we're lucky, we also have like a village that we can go to ask for advice. But just to remember to just check in with how your body is feeling is really important.
Thank you for that.
I totally agree with Dr. Blackstock. It's about you and what feels good to you and what you think, and trusting your instinct. If your instinct tells you, don't do that, don't do that. Like, love you enough to not do that. More so, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of, where you are. If you're at the Round Table, which is one of the cruddiest clubs here in Dade County. I'm sorry. What hangs out at the Round Table? You know what hangs out at the Round Table. Don't go to the Round Table. Go to the Square Table. Just using it as an example. The more aware you are with yourself, what you want, the safer it is. And yes, not just seek advice from older women, seek advice for younger women, because the younger women are out there. I preferably wouldn't want to go to a place where men who were my age hanging out at the same spot are at this new place. They're just older, telling more lies, not being honest, doing more things. So find something else. What else interests you? Maybe join a book club, maybe go riding on a yacht with your friends, maybe go to the park. It's free. Sit down. Let's talk. Conversations have to happen. Because we don't have conversations, a lot of us miss out on things. So we have to talk. We have to talk, and we have to talk about sex.
And can I just say, just relate to what Ms. Katt was saying, like, it is okay. And I know when we're young, we don't see this, but it is okay to, be by ourselves, like not dating someone, than to be someone who is bringing chaos to our lives. Just because you can then say that you're in a relationship or a situationship, not worth it. Just remember, like, your sanity, your mental health, your overall physical health is most important. And that's more important than any man.
Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing is diversified advice. So where you get your advice from, diversify that, self-awareness and self-engaging and understanding just your inner alarm systems. And so I love that so much. Go for it. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for this conversation. It has been a beautiful conversation. And thank you, everyone, for attending Melanated Movement's virtual roundtable, the Date Smart Collective. I hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you.